The dollar bill was crumpled, stained with what looked like coffee, and worth exactly $1 American. Sheikh Abdullah Al-Rashid, a man whose net worth exceeded $12 billion, held it between his fingers and studied the little girl standing before with eyes that missed nothing. "You may have this," he said in perfect English, extending the single dollar bill toward her, "but only if you can tell me what you will do with it." 7-year-old Maya stood in the marble foyer of the Al-Rashid Palace in Dubai, her small hand clutching her mother's uniform. Her mother, Yara, worked as a maid in this palace. They'd been living in the servants' quarters for 3 months since fleeing their war-torn village in Syria. Maya had been taught never to speak unless spoken to, never to make eye contact with the sheikh, never to ask for anything. But today, the sheikh had asked her a question, and Maya, despite her fear, despite the way her mother's hand tightened on her shoulder in warning, looked up at the man whose wealth could buy countries and said something no one expected. "I will plant it." The silence that followed was so complete you could hear the fountain in the courtyard 60 feet away. Sheikh Abdullah's personal assistant, Hassan, stopped typing on his tablet. The head of household, Mrs. Amani, froze mid-step. Yara's face went pale. "You didn't speak nonsense to Sheikh Abdullah. You didn't waste his time with childish foolishness. People have been fired for less, deported for less." But Sheikh Abdullah didn't look angry. He tilted his head slightly, studying Maya with an intensity that made her want to look away. But she didn't. She learned early that looking away meant you were lying. And Maya never lied. "You will plant money?" His voice carried no mockery, just genuine curiosity. "Explain." Maya took a breath. Her mother had taught her to speak clearly, to think before speaking, always show respect. "My grandmother used to tell me a story before the bombs came. She said that wise people plant trees whose shade they'll never sit under. She said the best investment is the one that grows and feeds others, not just yourself." She looked at the dollar bill. "If I plant this dollar by investing it in something that can grow, maybe it becomes $2, then 4, then more. And maybe one day I can help my mother so she doesn't have to clean floors anymore." The silence stretched even longer now. Hassan's mouth had actually fallen open. Mrs. Amani looked like she'd witnessed a miracle or a disaster. She couldn't decide which. But Sheikh Abdullah did something he rarely did. He smiled, not the polite smile he gave diplomats and business partners. A real smile that reached his eyes. "How old are you, child?" "7, sir." "7." He repeated it like he was testing the word. "And you understand investment, compound growth, and the concept of delayed gratification better than most adults I've negotiated with." He looked at Yara. "Your daughter, she goes to school." Yara's voice shook when she answered, "No, sir, we cannot afford it. I teach her what I can. Reading, writing, mathematics. She learns quickly." Sheikh Abdullah nodded slowly, that calculating look back in his eyes, the look that had built empires and crushed competitors. He held out the dollar bill again. "Take it, Maya. But I'm going to watch what you do with it. And if you truly can make it grow, if you can show me that you understand what most adults never learn, then perhaps we'll discuss your education." Maya took the dollar with both hands, holding it like it was made of glass. "Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. You have 1 month. Show me what that dollar can become." The next morning, while her mother worked, Maya sat in the servants' quarters with that dollar bill and a notebook she found in the palace recycling bin. She knew she couldn't actually plant money in the ground. That had been a metaphor. But what could a 7-year-old do with $1 in Dubai, a city where a bottle of water could cost 5 times that amount? She thought about her grandmother's words. Trees that provide shade, investment that feeds others, growth that compounds. Then she remembered something she'd seen in the palace kitchen. The chef, a kind Egyptian man named Omar, threw away vegetable scraps every day. Pounds and pounds of carrot tops, potato peels, herb stems. Waste that could become something. Maya found Omar during his break. "Sir, the scraps you throw away. May I have them?" Omar raised an eyebrow. "The garbage? Child, if you're hungry, I can—" "Not to eat, sir. To grow. I want to start a compost bin and grow vegetables. There's an empty plot behind the servants' quarters. Just dirt now, but with compost and the scraps you throw away, I could grow herbs and vegetables. And then, she paused, working out the math in her head. Then I could sell them back to you for the kitchen. Just a little. Enough to prove something. Omar stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, not unkindly. You want to sell me vegetables grown from my own garbage? Yes, sir, but they won't be garbage anymore. They'll be food. Fresh herbs cost a lot here in the desert. If I can grow them, you save money. I make a small profit. Everyone wins. Omar wiped his hands on his apron. And what do you need from me besides scraps? Maya held up the dollar bill. I need to buy seeds. Just herb seeds to start. Basil, mint, cilantro. They grow fast. But I don't know where to buy seeds cheap enough. That evening, Omar took Maya to a small shop in the old district where seeds were sold by weight, cheap enough that her dollar could buy packets of 5 different herbs. The shopkeeper, an old Indian man, listened to Maya's plan and threw in an extra packet of tomato seeds for free. For ambition, he said, I like ambition in the young. For 2 weeks, Maya worked every moment she wasn't studying with her mother. She built a compost bin from discarded wood pallets. She mixed the vegetable scraps Omar saved for her with dirt and water, turning it daily until it began to break down into rich, dark compost. She planted her seeds in neat rows, watering them with leftover water from the palace fountains that would have been wasted anyway. She used her knowledge of mathematics to calculate optimal spacing, sun exposure, water retention. The other servants thought she was strange. Some laughed. A few helped when they had time. But Maya worked with a single-minded focus of someone who understood this was more than a garden. This was a test. This was her future. By week 3, green shoots pushed through the soil. Basil leaves unfurled. Mint spread with aggressive enthusiasm. Cilantro sprouted in dense clusters. The tomato plants were slower, but they were growing. Maya tended them like they were made of gold. On day 28, 2 days before her deadline, Maya harvested her first crop. It wasn't much. A handful of basil, some mint, cilantro stems. But it was fresh, fragrant, and Omar confirmed it was restaurant quality. He purchased it from her for $5, far more than it was worth, but he said it was an investment in her education. Maya took those $5 and immediately bought more seeds. Not herbs this time. Fast-growing lettuce, radishes, green onions. Crops that could be harvested in 3 to 4 weeks. She expanded her garden, using her $5 to buy better soil amendments, a small drip irrigation system from a second-hand shop. She was learning to scale. On the 30th day, Sheikh Abdullah came to inspect what his dollar had become. He'd expected perhaps a small plant in a pot, a childish attempt at a project. What he found was a small but thriving garden producing food, with calculations written in Maya's notebook showing projected growth, cost analysis, profit margins, and a 3-month plan for expansion. He picked up the notebook and read her 7-year-old handwriting. She calculated that by month 3, if growth continued, she'd be producing enough herbs and vegetables to supply not just Omar's kitchen, but 2 other nearby restaurants she'd researched. Her projected revenue was $30 to $40 per week. From $1 in garbage. You turned waste into wealth, Sheikh Abdullah said quietly. You understood something that took me 20 years of business to learn. Efficiency isn't about cutting costs. It's about finding value in what others overlook. Maya stood with dirt under her fingernails and hope in her eyes. Does this mean I pass your test, sir? Sheikh Abdullah handed back her notebook. You didn't just pass, child. You taught me something. But tell me, if I were to invest in your education, what would you do with it? Maya didn't hesitate. I'd learn everything I could about business, agriculture, and economics. Then I'd come back and teach other refugee children how to turn nothing into something, because we're told we're burdens, that we're helpless. But we're not. We just need someone to believe we're worth the investment. That answer changed everything. The next week, Maya was enrolled in the British International School of Dubai, one of the most prestigious schools in the city. Her mother wept when she heard. But Sheikh Abdullah wasn't finished. He'd made a career of identifying potential and capitalizing on it. And Maya represented something he'd spent his whole life building businesses around, ROI, return on investment. He created a program, the Al-Rashid Opportunity Initiative, for every refugee child in his employee's family who could demonstrate initiative, creativity, and determination. He would fund their education. But there was a catch. They had to pitch him their idea first. They had to show him what they could do with almost nothing, because Sheikh Abdullah understood something most wealthy people never learned. The best investments weren't in people who had everything. They were in people who'd learned to create something from nothing. Maya's garden became a teaching tool. On weekends, she taught other children from the servants' quarters how to compost, plant, harvest, and sell. Within 6 months, there were 12 small gardens operated by refugee children, supplying herbs and vegetables to restaurants across the district. The children earned money. They learned business. They gained confidence. But more than that, they learned they weren't helpless. Maya excelled in school. Her teacher said she had the mind of an engineer and the heart of an entrepreneur. By age 12, she was taking business courses meant for high school students. By 15, she created a nonprofit with Sheikh Abdullah's backing that taught agricultural entrepreneurship to refugee communities across the Middle East. The single dollar that started everything was framed in Sheikh Abdullah's office. Next to it was a photo of Maya at 7, holding her first harvest of basil. And next to that, a photo of Maya at 18, accepting her admission to MIT with a full scholarship. She planned to study sustainable agriculture and social entrepreneurship. But the story doesn't end there, because Maya's garden had grown into something much bigger than vegetables. When Maya was 19, halfway through her studies at MIT, she returned to Dubai for the summer. Sheikh Abdullah, now in his 70s, had requested a meeting. She found in the same marble foyer where he'd handed her that dollar 12 years earlier. He looked older now, tired in a way that concerned her. "Sit, Maya." He gestured to the chair across from him. "I want to tell you something." She sat worried. "Are you well, sir?" He waved away her concern. "I'm old. That's different from unwell. But I've been thinking about legacy, about what we leave behind when the fountains stop running, and the palaces go to someone else." He leaned forward. "When I gave you that dollar, I was testing you. I wanted to see if you were clever, if you understood value. And you were, and you did, but you taught me something much more important that day." "What did I teach you?" "That wealth isn't measured in what you keep. It's measured in what you grow in others." He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. The Al-Rashid Opportunity Initiative had provided education to over 3,000 children in the past 12 years. 17 of them are now in university. 42 are running their own businesses. 6 are teaching in schools. 1 is in medical school. All because I invested in something you showed me was possible. Maya opened the folder. Inside were photos, stories, letters from children whose lives had changed because she'd planted a dollar. Tears blurred her vision. "I am Dain, Maya." Sheikh Abdullah's voice was matter-of-fact. "Cancer. 6 months, perhaps less. I've set aside funds to ensure the initiative continues. But I need someone to run it. Someone who understands what it means to turn nothing into something. Someone who remembers what it feels like to hold a single dollar and see the whole world in it." Maya's hand shook. "Sir, I'm only 19. I haven't even finished university. You finish your education the day you understood that wealth is grown, not hoarded. The university will still be there. This opportunity won't. I'm offering you the position of director. Full salary, full authority, and my complete trust. You built this, Maya. You should lead it." The decision wasn't easy. Leaving MIT meant delaying her degree, potentially derailing the path she'd imagined. But as Maya sat in that foyer, she remembered her grandmother's words. "Plant trees whose shade you'll never sit under." This was her tree. These 3,000 children and the thousands more who would come were the shade she could provide. "I'll do it," she said, "on one condition." Sheikh Abdullah smiled that rare, genuine smile. "You negotiate now? I am impressed. What's your condition?" "My mother retires. She's worked as a maid for 13 years. She sacrificed everything for me. If I take this position, she gets a pension, a home of her own, and the knowledge that her daughter isn't just successful, she's continuing the work of helping others like us." "Done." Sheikh Abdullah extended his hand. Your mother will never scrub another floor, and you, Maya, will plant gardens across the world. Sheikh Abdullah passed away 4 months later. His funeral was attended by dignitaries, business leaders, and heads of state. But in the back, standing in a section reserved for them, were 3,000 children whose lives he'd changed with his investment. Children who understood that wealth isn't about what you have. It's about what you grow in others. Maya stood at the front of that section, her mother beside her, and she held something in her hand. $1 bill, the same crumpled, coffee-stained dollar that had started everything. As they lowered Sheikh Abdullah's casket into the ground, Maya made a promise. She would take that dollar, that philosophy, that belief in potential, and plant it in every corner of the world where children needed someone to believe they were worth the investment. 10 years later, the Al-Rashid Opportunity Initiative operated in 17 countries. Over 50,000 children have been educated, trained, and empowered to build businesses, feed communities, and lift themselves out of poverty. Maya, now 29, had been featured in Time magazine as one of the world's most influential young leaders. But she never forgot where it started. She returned to Dubai once a year, to the palace where her mother had worked, now converted into the initiative's headquarters. She walked to the small plot of land behind what used to be the servants' quarters. The original garden was still there, maintained by students as a reminder. A plaque stood at its entrance. Here, a 7-year-old girl planted $1 and grew a future. May all who enter remember, wealth is not what you possess, but what you nurture in others. In memory of Sheikh Abdullah Al-Rashid, who understood that the best investment is always in human potential. Maya knelt in that garden and planted basil seeds, just like she had 22 years ago. Students watched, eager to learn. And as she pressed seeds into soil that had once been nothing but desert, dirt, and garbage, she smiled. Because she understood now, more than ever, what her grandmother had meant. The trees we plant, the investments we make in others, the belief we show in potential others overlook. That's the shade we leave behind. That's the legacy that matters. Sheikh Abdullah had given her $1, but more than that, he'd given her a chance. And Maya had spent her entire life since then, giving that same chance to others. Proving every single day that sometimes the most valuable thing a billionaire can do isn't write a check for $1 million. It's hand a child a single dollar and ask, what will you do with this? Because the answer to that question can change everything. If this story moved you, subscribe to the Kindness Stories. Share this with someone who needs to remember that potential exists in the most unlikely places, that belief in someone can change their entire trajectory, and that sometimes the smallest investment yields the greatest return. Comment below. Have you ever been given a chance that changed your life? Have you given someone else that chance? Let's plant seeds of possibility together. Until next time, remember that wealth is not what we keep. It's what we grow in others.